Zing a Paragrab by Edgar Allan Poe. As it is well known that the wise men came from the East, and as Mr. Touch-and-go Bullethead came from the East, it follows that Mr. Bullethead was a wise man, and if collateral proof of the matter be needed here, we have it. Mr. B was an editor. Irascibility was his sole foible, for in fact the obstinacy of which men accused him was anything but his foible, since he justly considered it his forte. It was his strong point, his virtue, and it would have required all the logic of a Brownson to convince him that it was anything else. I have shown that Touch-and-go Bullethead was a wise man, and the only occasion on which he did not prove infallible was when, abandoning that legitimate home for all wise men, the East, he migrated to the city of Alexander the Greatanopolis, or some place of a similar title out west. I must do him the justice to say, however, that when he made up his mind finally to settle in that town, it was under the impression that no newspaper, and consequently no editor, existed in that particular section of the country. In establishing the teapot, he expected to have the field all to himself. I feel confident he never would have dreamed of taking up his residence in Alexander the Greatanopolis, had he been aware that in Alexander the Greatanopolis there lived a gentleman named John Smith, if I rightly remember, who for many years had there quietly grown fat in editing and publishing the Alexander the Greatanopolis Gazette. It was solely therefore on account of having been misinformed that Mr. Bullethead found himself in Alex. Suppose we call it Nopolis for short, but as he did find himself there, he determined to keep up his character for obst firmness and remain so. Remain he did, and he did more. He unpacked his press type, etc., etc., rented an office exactly opposite to that of the Gazette, and on the third morning after his arrival issued the first number of the Alexanthet, is to say of the Nopolis Teapoters. Nearly as I can recollect, this was the name of the new paper. The leading article, I must admit, was brilliant, not to say severe. It was especially bitter about things in general, and as for the editor of the Gazette, he was torn all to pieces. In particular, some of Bullethead's remarks were really so fiery that I have always since that time been forced to look upon John Smith, who is still alive, in the light of a salamander. I cannot pretend to give all the teapot's paragraphs verbatim, but one of them runs thus. Oh yes, oh we perceive, oh no doubt the editor over the way is a genius, oh my, oh goodness gracious, what is this world coming to, oh tempora, oh Moses. A philippic at once so caustic and so classical alighted like a bombshell among the hitherto peaceful citizens of Nopolis. Groups of excited individuals gathered at the corners of the streets, every one awaited with heartfelt anxiety the reply of the dignified Smith next morning. It appeared as follows. We quote from the teapot of yesterday the subjoined paragraph. Oh yes, oh we perceive, oh no doubt, oh my, oh goodness, oh tempora, oh Moses. Why the fellow is all oh that accounts for his reasoning in a circle, and explains why there is neither beginning nor end to him nor to anything he says. We really do not believe the vagabond can write a word that hasn't an O in it. Wonder if this owing is a habit of his. Bytheby, he came away from down east in a great hurry. Wonder if he owes as much there as he does here. Oh, it is pitiful. The indignation of Mr. Bullethead at these scandalous insinuations I shall not attempt to describe on the eel-skinning principle. However, he did not seem to be so much incensed at the attack upon his integrity as one might have imagined. It was the sneer at his style that drove him to desperation. What Touch-and-go Bullethead not able to write a word without an O in it? He would soon let the jackanapes see that he was mistaken. Yes, he would let him see how much he was mistaken. The puppy Touch-and-go Bullethead of Frigpondium would let Mr. John Smith perceive that he, Bullethead, could indict, if it so pleased him, a whole paragraph, a whole articline, which that contemptible vowel should not answer, not even answer, make its appearance. But not that would be yielding a point to the said John Smith. He, Bullethead, would make no alteration in his style to suit the caprices of any Mr. Smith in Christendom perish. So vile a thought, the O, forever he would persist in the O. He would be as Awi could be. Burning with the chivalry of this determination, the great Touch-and-go in the next teapot came out merely with this simple but resolute paragraph in reference to this unhappy affair. The editor of the teapot has the honor of advising the editor of the Gazette that he, the teapot, will take an opportunity in tomorrow morning's paper of convincing him, the Gazette, that he, the teapot, both can and will be his own master as regards Stylistically, the teapot, intending to show him the Gazette the supreme, and indeed the withering contempt with which the criticism of him, the Gazette, inspires the independent bosom of him, the teapot, by composing for the especial gratification of him, the Gazette, a leading article of some extent, in which the beautiful voweled emblem of eternity, it, so offensive to the hyper-exquisite delicacy of him. The Gazette shall most certainly not be avoided by his the Gazette's most obedient humble servant the teapot, so much for Buckingham. In fulfilment of the awful threat, thus darkly intimated, rather than decidedly enunciated the great Bullethead, turning a deaf ear to all entreaties for copy, and simply requesting his foreman to go to the DL. When he the foreman assured him the teapot that it was high time to go to press, turning a deaf ear to everything I say, the great Bullethead sat up, until daybreak, consuming the midnight oil, and absorbed in the composition of the really unparalleled paragraph, which follows. So ho John, how now told you, so you know don't crow another time before you're out of the woods. Does your mother know you're out? Oh no sir, go home at once now John, to your odious old woods of Concord. Go home to your woods, old Algo. You want oh po John, don't do so, you've got to go. You know so, go at once, and don't go slow for nobody owns, you hear you know oh John. If you don't go you're no homeowner, you're only a fowl, an owl, a cow, a sow, a dull, a pole, a poor old good for nothing tonabody log, dog, hog, or frog. Come out of a Concord bog, cool no cool, do be cool you fool. None of your crowing old cock, don't frown, sardont don't hollow, nor howl, nor growl, nor bow wow, good Lord John, how you do look. Told you so you know, but stop rolling your goose of an old pole about so, and go, and drown your sorrows in a Exhausted very naturally, by so stupendous an effort, the great Touchango could attend to nothing farther. That night, firmly, composedly, yet with an air of conscious power, he handed his MS to the devil in waiting, and then walking leisurely home retired with ineffable dignity to bed. Meantime the devil, to whom the copy was entrusted, ran upstairs to his case, in an unutterable hurry, and forthwith made a commencement at setting the MS up. In the first place, of courses, the opening word was so made a plunge into the capital S hole, and came out in triumph with a capital S. Elated by this success, he immediately threw himself upon the little box with a blindfold impetuosity, but who shall describe his horror when his fingers came up without the anticipated letter in their clutch? Who shall paint his astonishment and rage at perceiving, as he rubbed his knuckles, that he had been only thumping them to no purpose against the bottom of an empty box? Not a single little O was in the little O hole, and glancing fearfully at the capital O partition, he found that, to his extreme terror, in a precisely similar predicament, Ostracan, his first impulse was to rush to the foreman. So said he, gasping for breath, I can't never set up nothing without no arse. What do you mean by that? Growled the foreman, who was in a very ill humour at being kept so late. Why sir, there bean't an O in the office, neither a big un nor a little un. What the DL has become of all that were in the case? I don't know sir, said the boy, but one of them GZ devils is been prowling bout here all night, and I spect he's gone and cabbaged 'em every one. Dod rot him, I haven't a doubt of it, replied the foreman, getting purple with rage. But I tell you what you do, Bob, that's a good boy, you go over the first chance you get and hook every one of their is, and DN them their izzards. Just so, replied Bob with a wink and a frown, ill be into ill, let know a thing or two, but in de meantime that paragrab. Muse go in tonight, you know, else there'll be the DL to pay, and not a bit of pitch hot, interrupted the foreman with a deep sigh, and an emphasis on the bit. Is it a long paragraph, Bob? Shouldn't call it a worry long paragrab, said Bob. Ah well then, do the best you can with it, we must get to press, said the foreman, who was over head and ears in work. Just stick in some other letter, for oh nobody's going to read the fellow's trash anyhow. Worry well, replied Bob, here goes it, and off he hurried to his case, muttering as he went considerable vel them expressions pertickler for a man as doesn't swore, so is to gouge out all their eyes and DN, all their gizzards vel. This here's the chap as is just able for to do it. The fact is, that although Bob was but 12 years old, and 4 feet high, he was equal to any amount of fight in a small way. The exigency here described is by no means of rare occurrence in printing offices, and I cannot tell how to account for it, but the fact is indisputable that when the exigency does occur, it almost always happens that X is adopted as a substitute for the letter deficient. The true reason, perhaps, is that X is rather the most superabundant letter in the cases, or at least was so in the old times long enough to render the substitution in question an habitual thing with printers. As for Bob, he would have considered it heretical to employ any other character in a case of this kind than the X to which he had been accustomed. I shall have to X this paragrab, said he to himself, as he read it over in astonishment, but it's just about the awfulest paragrab I ever did see, so X it he did unflinchingly, and to press it went Z. Next morning the population of Nopolis were taken all aback by reading in the teapot the following extraordinary leader. SX HX HXW NXW TXLD, IXU SX IXU KNXW DXNT, CRXW Angsther Time, BIFXRE IXUR ZUT XF, the WXXDS DZS IXUR MXTher KNXW IXUR ZUT XH NX NXSX GX HXME, at XNCE, NXW JXHN TX IXUR, XDIXUS XLD WXXDS XF, CXNCXRD, GX HXME TX IXUR WXXDS XLD XWLGX IXU WXNT XH PXH PXH JXHN DXNT DX SX IXUV GXD TX GX IXU KNXW SX GX at XNCE and DXNT GX SLXW FXR NXBXDY XWNS IXU here IXU KNXW XH JXHN 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 if IXU DXNT GX IXUR NX HXMXNX IXUR XNLY a FXWL an XWL a CXW a SXW a DXLL a PXLL a PXXR XLD GXXD FXR NX ThinkSngsPST LXG DXG HXG XR FRXG CXME ZUT XF a CXNCXRD BXG CXXL an XW CXXL DX BCXXL IXU FXXL NXNE XF IXUR CRX Wing XLD CXCK DXNT FRXWN SXDXNT DXNT HXLLX NXR HXWL NXR GRXWL NXR BXWWXWWXW GXXD LXRD JXHN HXW IXU DX LXXK TXLD IXU SX IXU KNXW but STXB RX Ling IXU GXXSE XF an XLD PXLL ABSUT SX and GX and DRXWN IXUR SXRRXWS in a BXWL. The uproar occasioned by this mystical and cabalistical article is not to be conceived. The first definite idea entertained by the populace was that some diabolical treason lay concealed in the hieroglyphics, and there was a general rush to Bullethead's residence for the purpose of riding him on a rail. But that gentleman was nowhere to be found. He had vanished, no one could tell how, and not even the ghost of him has ever been seen since. Unable to discover its legitimate object, the popular fury at length subsided, leaving behind it by way of sediment quite a medley of opinion about this unhappy affair. One gentleman thought the whole an excellent joke. Another said that indeed Bullethead had shown much exuberance of fancy. A third admitted him eccentric, but no more. A fourth could only suppose it the Yankees designed to express in a general way his exasperation. Say rather to set example to posterity, suggested a fifth. That Bullethead had been driven to an extremity was clear to all, and in fact since that editor could not be found, there was some talk about lynching the other one. The more common conclusion, however, was that the affair was simply extraordinary and inexplicable. Even the town mathematician confessed that he could make nothing of so dark a problem. Everybody knew was an unknown quantity. But in this case, as he properly observed, there was an unknown quantity of Roman 10. The opinion of Bob the Devil, who kept dark about his having zed the Paragrab, did not meet with so much attention as I think it deserved, although it was very openly and very fearlessly expressed. He said that for his part, he had no doubt about the matter at all, that it was a clear case, that Mr. Bullethead never could be persuaded fur to drink like other folks, but vas continually asfigging that air blessed XXX ale, and as a natural consequence, it just puffed him up savage, and made him X-cross in the extreme.